Special thanks to Reddit user with Byte for granting me permission to use their story. And, as always, my dear listeners, do enjoy. When I was a teenager, I went through a rebellious phase. I was all dyed, spiky hair and torn clothes. Being weird was cool. Now, I am married with a baby on the way. I have a promotion on the cards at work, life insurance and a mortgage. My wife said she was happy to stay in the apartment we rented. I wanted somewhere that we owned. Somewhere with a garden. Somewhere with nice neighbors. A forever family home. It was Saturday afternoon and I had just finished painting the nursery. I was cleaning the brushes when I noticed my wife standing in the doorway. She was supporting her by now always aching back with her hands and looking tired. Still beautiful. Always beautiful. But run down. It had not been an easy pregnancy. "Do you know any knights in shining armor who will go down to the store and buy a damsel in distress a big tub of chocolate ice cream?" she asked, a smile brightening her face. I put my jacket on and headed straight off to the store. There were many factors which made me want to buy in this location. Our house was one of 24 on a small estate built only 5 years ago. On a day like the one I was going to the store to buy ice cream, it was easy to imagine I was living in a better, more innocent age. Lawns were being mowed. Children played tag. Clothes were being hung out to dry on lines that fluttered gently in a midsummer breeze. And I was walking to my local corner store. Until I moved here, I had always driven to big discount stores and bought in bulk. Shopping was a chore. I cannot carry a tune, so I kept it quiet when I started whistling as I walked down the street. This was how life should be lived, I thought. The houses had been built by the same developer, so looked very similar. I enjoyed looking at the colorful flower displays in hanging baskets, lawn borders and house nameplates, which owners used to personalize their properties. 10 minutes walk down the street from my house, I noticed for the first time that one place seemed to be lacking in TLC. The grass on the lawn was patchy, and there were cracks in the paint on the front window pane. A shame, I thought, but tried not to be judgmental. Perhaps whoever lived there could not get out to tend their garden and property's exterior as they would have wished. My guesswork seemed to be confirmed when through the front window, I noticed there was an old lady inside. I had not seen her standing there a moment before. She must have just walked into view. She had gray hair pulled up into a bun. There were the lines of a life long lived etched into her skin. Old age, I pondered, comes to us all one day, and carried on my way. At the store, while I was carrying the ice cream for my wife to the till, I had an inspiration. There were pots with flowers in them for sale in a display near the counter. Money was very tight. Budgeting for a newborn and the house had left me close to being overextended. Although I had not admitted this to my wife, because I didn't want to add to her stress levels. If I did not get this promotion and the raise that came with it, finance was going to become a problem. Nonetheless, I decided I could treat the old lady on my street to some flowers. They did not even need to be transferred from the pot and could brighten up the front of her house by being placed next to the door. This was the kind of thing a neighbor did in the life I was making for myself. I was feeling good as I made my way back. I reached the old lady's house and was about to knock on the door when I noticed a man standing in the drive of the house opposite. He looked to be in his 50s and was what I would call weather-worn. He was close to bald and had quite a paunch. "Help you?" he asked, but in a tone that suggested this was the last thing he wanted to do. My good mood deflated slightly, but what was clearly a suspicious neighbor, bordering on a busybody, I fixed a smile onto my face and replied, "Afternoon, I'm just dropping off these flowers for the elderly lady that lives here. I thought they would brighten up her porch and her day." He scowled. "Ain't no one lives in that house," he said. "But I started to protest. He cut me off. "No one lives in that house, so I would thank you to be on your way." I had more than enough pressure points in my life and did not want to add more by rowing with one of my new neighbors, even if they were being a jerk. So I went on my way. I left the plant pot against the post of the mailbox in my front garden. I would have to decide what to do with it later, and went inside. My wife was delighted at the ice cream, and her kiss made me forget about the unpleasantness of what had just occurred. The next day, though, my thoughts returned to the old lady. Having a weird neighbor who denied she was even living there, on top of her being housebound, must make life very difficult. If that was the case. I decided to try and find out. What did we do before the internet? I powered up my laptop and typed in the number of the property where I had seen the old lady. Nothing specific about that house came up, but I did find a couple of articles on a local news site about the estate opening. In one, there was a photograph of a young couple being handed an oversized key by some bigwig from the developers. I followed the link to a story dated a year earlier, which showed a whole group of bigwigs gathered around a shovel for the breaking-in ceremony that preceded the start of the estate's construction. Then my eye was drawn to a new link at the bottom of the page. It read, "Tragic end to couple's tale." Feeling apprehensive, but hooked, I clicked on the story. I read it twice, then went to pour myself a bourbon. A local couple's lives ended in tragedy last week in what police are describing as a murder-suicide. Their bodies were found at the home they shared for over 60 years. The couple, aged 82 and 79, are believed to have been in dispute over the construction of a new housing estate. Their farmhouse stood on land earmarked for the estate, and the couple had refused a number of bids to buy their property. Both bodies were found with fatal shotgun wounds to the head. It is understood that after shooting his wife, the husband turned the gun on himself. It was not the brutal sadness of what was reported that had got to me, or that my dream neighborhood was tainted. It was the picture of the couple published with the story. I had seen the old woman in the photograph, the day before, through the front window of the house. Which was impossible. Of course it was. "Penny for your thoughts?" my wife asked. I had not seen her come into the room. I closed the page on my browser. I took her hand in my own. "Just grateful for everything I have," I told her. "I'm not a cold person, not selfish, but I have responsibilities now, priorities." The thought of what had happened to the elderly couple I just read about was heartbreaking, but I could not dwell on it. My wife hugged me and whispered, "Ice cream," in my ear. Although I was determined not to be dragged off course, the estate seemed to have lost its sparkle as I walked to the shore. I noticed a crumpled up beer can on the ground next to a litter bin, graffiti on a fence. When I reached the house where I had seen the old lady, I thought of the plant pot still on my front lawn, decided it would be simpler if I kept it. There was no sign of the old lady or her neighbor, and I kept walking. I don't know why I glanced back, but I did, and I saw her. She was there, standing in her window as before. A coldness gripped me. She did look exactly like the old woman on the photograph. I stared at her, could not help myself. She returned my gaze, and now I saw the gaping hole in her face. The blood, the shattered bones. Only one of her eyes remained. I turned and hurried down the street. Fear followed me every step of the way.